but they have a fiscal sponsor. And so whose information do we include? So budget-wise, you're just including the information that's related to the project. So it's not related to one organization or the other per se. It's what's related to the project, the revenue and the expenses that go directly to that project. Now, the org history and those types of attachments, the fiscal sponsor is the actual applicant. So that information would be what you would include. If it makes more sense for the application to include information about the organization, I would include both. There's space for it. You would just want to explain it within your narrative and probably at the top of each of those documents why you're including information on both organizations. Okay?
I think I understand.
Okay. Any other questions specifically related to mini grants before we move on? Okay, if you think of any, we can still address them, don't worry. So we're going to talk about general grant writing tips, okay? You've probably heard of the 3 C's at some point. So the 3 C's are clear, concise, and compelling. And these are just standard good writing tips, okay? It's important that your narrative is clear, that it answers the questions that are stipulated in the guidelines. Like I said, put those title headings right in there and answer those questions directly. Be sure your attachments are consistent with what you're saying in your narrative. So if your narrative says that the hotel is going to cost a certain amount, that should be the same amount in your budget, okay? If your narrative says that your conference is in July and then your attachments say they're in June, it's not a good thing. Make sure everything's consistent. The panel that's reviewing this is that's just going to throw out questions that you don't want, right? Also, be concise. Make your point and be done with it. You don't need to overwhelm them with a whole lot of extra information. And also make sure it's compelling. You want them to enjoy reading your narrative, and you want them to be compelled to give you the money, right? Have someone else read your narrative. They might find things in there that are confusing that made a lot of sense to you. You might talk about things related to your artwork that are what we consider jargon that other people might not understand. Or you might use acronyms that need to be spelled out. It's good to have someone read your narrative that's not familiar with your project or your professional development opportunity just for clarity, because you can't know that the panelists will know what you're talking about either, right? Also, don't wait till the last minute. This application is online, and it will show if you wait till the last minute in your narrative. Also, sometimes technology is not your friend. There's going to be a bunch of people on that website trying to submit at the last minute. Don't be one of them, because if it crashes, then you're out of luck. So make sure you get on early. You need a login and password for the site, so make sure you can log on. Try it with different browsers if you're having issues. And make sure you have a way of converting all of your attachments to PDFs. They all have to be PDFs. In the past, we've said they should be PDFs. The guidelines require that they're PDFs this year. Now, the site's not going to kick it back out if it's not a PDF, but I can tell you those reviewers are going to notice if it's not a PDF, because they're opening document after document after document, and when it opens up in Word or Excel, it throws up a red flag, okay? You also want to make sure it's a PDF just because it's easier for there not to be issues with formatting or them not being able to open it. You also should probably try sending that file to someone else just to make sure they can open it and it's not a bunk file, okay? So like I said earlier, make sure you're following those guidelines. Actually read them and reread them. But of course, give me a call if you have any questions or shoot me an email. I'm willing to take a quick look at any narrative to give you some feedback. I can't guarantee that just because I look at your narrative, you're going to get approved, because I'm not one of the panelists. We just administer it. So we don't have, our opinion has nothing to do with who gets funded.
And what is your email?
My email will be on the last slide, but it's allison.buck@a3arts.org. So some other resources for you guys for other grant opportunities. I just sort of did some Googling on this the other day and found some of these. The Foundation Center has a couple different sites that might be interesting. They have grants to individuals online. That's that first link there. It's a searchable database of grant makers that give to individuals. You do need a membership to get on the site, but I saw a link on there that said that they have a libraries of members. So sometimes it's like if you go to the university, you can log in with their password, or I don't know if the Ann Arbor District Library has a membership, you could go on with them. Or you might find a group of artists who might want to become members together to search that database. Grant Space is also one of those sites where you can search for other opportunities. I will say, additionally, the grants to individuals online seemed like they had some training tools that might be interesting as well, so it's a good site to check out. The one I'm more familiar with, because the Arts Alliance, we use it all the time, it's called Grant Station. It's a database that has various grant opportunities for organizations to apply for. Again, it's a member-driven organization. You have to become a member to search their database, but it's a really great tool and it's worth the investment if you're going to be applying to a bunch of different grants. Some additional resources. So we've talked a little bit about fiscal sponsorship, but I should have asked if anyone didn't know what a fiscal sponsor was. So generally a fiscal sponsor is an organization that is a 501c3 that will sponsor an individual applying to a grant. So they will act as your organization that's applying so that you can take tax-deductible donations or you can apply for a grant. The Art Train is an organization that I also work for. They do fiscal sponsorship. I'm not sure if the Arts Center does fiscal sponsorship. Getting a head shake. So there might be other local nonprofits that do that. The thing to be aware of if you're seeking out a fiscal sponsor is it usually should be an organization that has a similar mission to what you're going to be seeking funding for. It doesn't have to be, but generally that's how it works. Also, you want to make sure that they're not going to be applying for the same grants that you'd be interested in, because then you can't both apply for the same grant usually, so they wouldn't work out as a fiscal sponsor. There is a webinar on fiscal sponsorship actually on that Grant Space site that I said had some great training tools. If you wanted more information on getting a fiscal sponsor, it's a whole hour on fiscal sponsorship. So that might be interesting to you if you were interested in that. And lastly, I mentioned earlier subscribing to the Arts Alliance e-newsletter. We include different grant opportunities in that newsletter. So keep your eyes peeled on there if you wanted to see other opportunities as well. I saw a hand.
I was just going to add to Art Train, A2 Geeks also will serve as fiscal sponsors for any grant. We have we're actually redoing our website right now, but we will have an online application project or process that an individual could apply for funding for a project if it's tech-based projects.
Great. So if you have a tech-based project, A2 Geeks will do fiscal sponsorship. And your website is?
A2geeks.org.
A2geeks.org. So as I said, last slide has my contact information, phone number, and email address at the Arts Alliance. So as you're applying, if you have any questions or if you want me to review anything, just holler. Any other questions for me today? Well, great. You guys have been fabulous. Thank you so much.